Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are at the very end of our Metro 2033 series, doing our final wrap-up and discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited to get this done, and we've got a lot of points to bring up.
Yeah. So I guess the first big thing we really want to discuss is our impressions of the game.
Yeah.
Big thing for us right out of the gate is this game is very linear.
Yeah, it's a very linear game. It kind of feels cobbled together and kind of pushes its way through, trying to get you through this main objective.
Yeah, and there's mainly looking at the game. There's really only one path you can take. There's not a lot of branching off paths, at least ones that are obvious. We'll get back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fairly linear game. There is something we did discover after our playthrough. We looked through a player's guide and discovered that there is actually a morals point system that allows you to alter the ending.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, I mean, it's not very clear how it works, but I mean, it's kind of focuses a lot on the yeah.
I guess the best way to put it is it focuses on how much you want to explore the metro itself. Because if you played through like we did and just kind of burn through mowing everyone down as a god of war, you don't hit a lot of the metro points, the moral points.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussions in the game, kind of the backstory and whatnot. You can eavesdrop on people discussing things with each other. Yeah, get a lot of the backstory, and it's kind of altered to how many people you can kill in the game. I mean,
the more people you kill in the game, the less moral points you accumulate. Again, we're discussing this in very vague terms because no one actually really knows 100% how it works aside from the developers.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of cool in that it also doesn't tell you outright that your actions are being watched, and it kind of lets the natural player come out.
Yeah, and it actually kind of makes it feel like, there's not a giant omnipotent force saying, hey, you're doing the right thing, you're doing the wrong thing.
Like Fallout.
Yeah.
The next thing we really have to mention are the difficulty spikes and the strange, really random difficulty spikes that appear in the game.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, we were playing on a higher difficulty, and, we're not the best FPS players in the world, so...
Yeah, I mean, we were playing on the second highest difficulty in the game, but we still have to make the point that there are times in this game where it is a bastard of a game.
Yeah, I mean, you very much have to slog through it a very specific way. It's very unforgiving, and I mean, yeah, it got a lot of repetition there.
Yeah, and the segment that comes to mind for me was the freaking front line. I mean, we died 27 times in the same area.
Mm-hmm. I mean, sure, there were atmospheric points to that, but I mean, the fact it was very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we were tired. That was the end of a long day of recording. The room we record in is hot as hell. It was the middle of a heat wave as well. So, yeah, there are other factors, but yeah, 27 times in the same section is a lot.
Yeah.
There's kind of a few thoughts we have on how that works, too. Part of the factor is that weapon accuracy and weapon damage are not particularly good in the game.
Which makes sense. I mean, it kind of goes with the story, but it doesn't really help the gameplay all that much.
Yeah, and it makes sense, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because, if you have this kind of short little, this guy's 30 feet away, I put my crosshairs I put my iron sights on the center of his chest and start shooting at him. And, I've got bullets going all around him, and the few that do hit him are basically paintballs. That's really frustrating in any game.
Yeah.
The other thing that kind of pops up, too, is that ammunition is extremely scarce in the game, which, again, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it was actually deliberately done by the developers.
Yeah, it's a post-apocalypse. The entire world has just been vaporized by nuclear weapons, so not a lot of ammunition companies are geared up to survive that.
Yeah, but it got to the point where despite not having a lot of ammo, it never hindered us in the game. I mean, it changed our gameplay strategy, but I mean, we could always scrounge up more.
Yeah, so it alters your strategy, but we never were stopped completely because we just did not have the ammunition to go on.
Yeah.
Some of the other thoughts too is that part of the problem might be level design with the difficulty of the game. I mean, while in theory there are sections that you can just sneak through and not be detected.
Yeah, the wiki said, I mean, you can get through the entire game without killing somebody, which is I don't know about that.
Yeah, we don't see how. But it would be nice if that was a little more obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of lame to say that, but
Well, I mean, they're secret paths for a reason.
Mhm.
But
And also, the stealth system in the game wasn't particularly well designed either. I mean, there were some segments where we were in a spot where we should have been seen by people but weren't, and there's other segments where we were seen by people but shouldn't have.
yeah.
It's
And the atmospheric things, like stepping on glass, that makes sense. That worked really cool.
Mhm.
But, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, we also have to bring out the fact that, like we said, we're not the best FPS players out there.
At all.
No, not in the slightest.
And, I mean, I would argue the fact that, going through the entire game without killing somebody is cool and all, but it does kind of, that's half the game right there.
Yeah, it's a first-person shooter. Shooting is the operative word here.
Yeah.
Also, one little thing we did notice about the game is that it's split very distinctly into segments.
Yeah, 3 segments in particular. I mean, you got you're fighting against humans. You're getting to like this part stealth, part gunfight sort of thing. I mean, another segment is you got your mutants, you running away or you gunning down a bunch of people running at you. Or the third, which is you're in the stations. It's a cinematic one. You don't really do anything but learn story.
Yeah, and they're very, very starkly broken apart, and they don't really mix ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one thing I think would have improved the game is if it blended a little more, if it just wasn't so distinctly one or the other.
And that actually allows us to move on pretty well to the setting of the game, which we love it. It's really, really, really cool setting.
Oh yeah, the story is great. I mean, it's a dark. It's you get a sense of desperation. It could be total, you don't have a lot. You're scrounging. It's great.
Yeah, and the cool part about this is Dansky, you brought this up, was the fact that the author of the actual Metro 2033 book is trying to create a mythos.
Yeah, he's kind of developed. I mean, he started in 2002, so he's kind of had a bunch of time to work with this. But he's kind of developing. He wants to develop the world over just a story. As he has a lot of other writers kind of going into it, bringing up points like what happens in St. Petersburg or some other place in Russia that I don't quite know. I'm not big. I don't know much about the provinces in Russia, but I mean, he wants to have the world rediscover itself, and
that's actually really cool. I'd love to see that done with more game universes.
Yeah.
And while we're on the subject of stories, we've got the actual game story.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt that it was. I mean, again, we've never read the book, so it may have portrayed that a little better, but it kind of seemed kind of coupled together.
Yeah, and we're also not entirely certain how much of that was lost in translation. What was lost between going from the book to the game, and what was also lost between the Russian language and English language.
Yeah.
So that's like 2 steps where you can lose a lot of important stuff. The actual Russian language version of the game might be more detailed, but it would require us sitting through the game, playing through with the Russian language version, or ideally just playing the Russian version without subtitles and actually speaking Russian. But
yeah, I mean, the voice actors are absolutely spectacular on the Russian side. I mean, I don't speak Russian, but it sounded cool.
The other thing we have with the game is that the story felt extremely small.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, you're in a metro, but I mean, you go through this epic journey and you don't really go that far.
I mean, we're talking a difference of a couple of miles.
Yeah.
Which, it's kind of this weird inversion of the hero's journey that you get in the Odyssey, is that there's this huge epic journey that's all taking place under downtown Moscow.
Yeah.
Which, it makes sense, because the whole point of the game is you're in this kind of claustrophobic, very small, very tight environment. but it also kind of messes with the game's attempts to give it scale.
Yeah, like specifically with D6. I mean, you have this huge, vast missile silo thing, but it even seems very small simply because, I mean, you're very limited in where you can go. I mean, there's only specific things that you're doing. You're kind of being shoehorned along by your allies. And I mean, like, there's not much scale to it, even though it's this vast facility.
Mm-hmm. And also, the game itself, if you haven't noticed, is relatively short. I mean, you're talking probably 7 to 8.5 hours worth of gameplay.
Yeah, which I mean, I will admit that's a big pet peeve of mine. I mean, if you're gonna make a game, make something I can enjoy for an extended amount of time. I mean, I understand difficulties in making games, time to develop and whatnot, but still.
Yeah, it's still kind of short. Yeah, but there's also kind of another thing is at the very beginning of the game, you start off in that kind of in media res moment, which is a literature term for bringing your viewer, reader, player in this case, into the action in kind of the middle. Very dramatic moment. So they see the moment, it hooks them in, and then they get to see everything that builds up to that.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, and it works really well. The problem is it doesn't really work so well when you shoehorn that moment into like the last 5% of the game.
Yeah, I mean, in contrast to what we said about it being a very short game, it was so long into the game itself that, I mean, we were kind of lost as to what point we were at. I mean, it's just kind of like pop. Oh, by the way, we're here again. And we're sitting just like, hey, where's here?
Yeah, I mean, if you actually go back and look at that particular recording, we are kind of confused for a second. It's like, oh, wow, well, no, we're back at the beginning. All right.
Which, yeah, I mean, it works really well in a lot of literary senses too.
Yeah, but not so much in the video game. It probably should have been a little earlier.
Yeah.
So that kind of lets us move on to the character design. It honestly felt really shallow to me.
Yeah, I mean, very shallow. I mean, by far, my favorite character in the game and the best well fleshed out would easily be Bourbon, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we ragged on him, as much as we kind of made fun of his very existence, he was the most thought out character.
Yeah, I mean, he had a past. The past affected the present. I mean, you pretty much taught Artyom everything he knows and whatnot. And I mean, yeah, I mean, he was very drawn out. He had kind of a life of his own.
Yeah, that ended rather suddenly and actually,
Made perfect sense.
And then we go to the other end of the spectrum, which is Gandalf, Khan.
Which, granted, I would argue that he is, like, due to the moral point scale that we understand, he is, like, one of the more important characters. But, I mean, he's very much I mean, they don't really explain him too much. Like, he's not terribly relevant in the world.
Yeah, and with the alternative endings where you get more of the moral points, he does factor into the world a lot more. But it's also, he doesn't really alter that much. It's just that he's just kind of this weird, mysterious guy who looks like Satan who pops up and just babbles psychobabble at you and then goes away.
Which, granted, I mean, the moral system, it doesn't work as, you know, good and evil. You kind of have the ranger path where it's the more militant, destroy the enemy one. And then you have, like, have more his peace-loving, you know, philosophical one. But, I mean, you're kind of getting to the point. It's like, well, why would I listen to you? I just met you.
Yeah. And, well, we're coming to the sort of character, Artyom, the God of War. What the hell?
I mean, story-wise, he's never left that one metro before. Yeah. I mean, he's brand new. I understand gameplay mechanics, like, kind of need to have him be kind of a good character, but, I mean, it just doesn't make sense why he's killing all these super seasoned professional soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, all of the more experienced stalker or metro dudes, with the exception of Ullman, the scientist guy whose name I don't remember.
I think it's Dimitri.
Yeah. And Khan. Those are the only 3 people he meets in the entire game who survive.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, and then that pedo blacksmith, but, you know.
I would debate that he's dead.
Yeah, and it's just... It seems kind of weird if you think about it, and again, yeah, we are kind of overthinking this, but it's kind of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the point of a critical thinking of a game.
Yeah. The other thing is, Artyom is a silent protagonist, which he clearly can talk. He narrates the in-between sections of the game.
Yeah. But throughout the entire game, he doesn't say a word to the other characters. Like, throughout the entire time he's known Con and Bourbon, he didn't say one word.
Yeah, which
And
is
yeah,
weird when you think about it. Like,
especially because Con knows your mission.
yeah. And, honestly, for me, the silent protagonist thing, well, I get why it's there. It's there to kind of pull the player into the shoes of the main character. It really kind of kills immersion for me because there's segments where you feel like you should talk. You should say something. Like, Artyom should have a response, just being a human being. But he doesn't say anything.
Which, I mean, I understand why they did it in the gameplay. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how many I do it, but it's you sit down, you talk to the computer screen, but granted, sounds a lot weirder now I say it out loud, but
Blame Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah. But I mean, it's something a character needs a character. Like, Artyom is easily the least explained character in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his stepfather's explained better.
Yeah.
And he's in the game for like 5 minutes. So, that also lets us lead on to the Nazis, which is really kind of the elephant in the room of the game's enemy design.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're pretty much the go-to bad guy if you don't want to feel bad about killing people, but there's so many options that you could have done.
Yeah, like bandits. You already have bandits in the game.
Why not cannibals?
Yeah, cannibals. Zombies would have made more sense than the Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, the Reds make sense because you're in Moscow and, you're trying to band together in some hard times and
carefully ration your resources so that everybody's equal. I mean, dude, that's like Marxism in a nutshell right there.
Yeah.
But Nazis?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you needed a counter, but, I mean, I can just imagine one guy's like, I have a great idea. You guys, you're my Gestapo.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. Russia has a neo-Nazi movement in it. A lot of Europe does, and America does, and freaking Middle East probably does.
But, I mean, it doesn't really seem like a group that would gain a ton of power.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But while we're speaking on the subject of horrible mutants, let's talk about the actual mutants.
Yeah, I mean, while limited, they were pretty good. You got your little nostalgias or whatever they're called.
Nosalises?
Yeah, nosalises. You got little rat men that try to eat you. You got your demons, which are the giant flying guys that are inexplicably powerful.
Yeah.
You have the librarians, which are monkeys.
Yeah, like gorillas,
Yeah.
basically. It's actually a really cool mechanic with the librarians that, again, we didn't discover until we actually started reading about the game afterwards. It was like, oh, you can stare them down. So apparently how it works is that before they aggro, if you stare at them just right in the eye, they will stop and then back off.
Which, granted, I mean, I don't know if you can do that to a silverback gorilla. If it's running at you, I don't think staring at it's going to make it stop.
Yeah. And also the thing about it, too, is a lot of the demons, with the exception of a lot of the mutants, with the exception of the Nosalises, specifically the demons and the librarians, are really, really freaking tough to kill.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, we did not know you could actually kill the librarians until we went back and read about it. It's like,
yeah,
oh.
I mean, supposed to use liberal use of sticky bombs.
Yeah. Didn't we actually try that? We stuck one with a sticky bomb?
I think we tried to use a regular bomb. It was just out of range or something like that.
It was out of range. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to go back and look at the footage.
Yeah, and you got the tentacle things, and you got your amoebas, which, fuck those things.
Yeah. God, those things are awful. But the cool part, really, about the mutants is that they just don't explain them.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of, in-depth zoological research in post-apocalyptic Moscow.
They have other things to worry about.
Like not starving to death.
Yeah.
The other kind of cool thing we wanted to explain, or talk about, was the anomalies. And we have it shoehorned in with the enemy design because we really didn't have a better place to put it.
Yeah. Which the giant balls of lightning I kind of find is the more disappointing of them. Merely because, I mean, they gave this great mechanic with it, and then they just simply didn't use it. It only showed up twice in the game, and the second time you ignored the mechanics that it gave you.
Yeah, like, imagine how cool it would have been to have a segment in the game where you're, like, fighting some bandits or the mystery Nazis. And just suddenly you see this, like, one of the ball lightning anomalies come around the corner, and just everybody freezes. And everyone just has to sit there and wait for it to pass by, staying perfectly still, aiming guns at each other.
Yeah. One guy panics, runs away, the lightning bolt zaps the crap out of him.
Yeah, like, how cool would that have been? That would have been, like, an epic segment in the game.
Yeah.
Like, people would still be talking about the first time they played that segment.
Of course, granted, I mean, they may have done stuff in Last Light, but again, I don't know.
Yeah, the other, cool... The one anomaly we did like were the ghosts.
Yeah, ghosts were actually very well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, you know, the first time I ever really played Metro, probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point, I actually was killed by a ghost because I didn't quite catch the bit where Khan told you to leave your flashlight on and walk straight into one.
We have a very long history of ignoring people.
Yep. If it's not obvious.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of cool that they, you know, you touch them and they kill you. And we also really liked that they threw out all these explanations for the ghosts and never settled on one.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a phenomena. It doesn't really make sense in it doesn't really, you know, make sense in reality, but that's why it's a haunting.
Yeah. And, you know, again, there's not a lot of people devoted to studying it because it's post-apocalyptic Moscow.
Yeah.
Once we've moved on from the anomalies, we kind of want to talk about the weapon design.
Huh, yeah.
and the best way we can summarize this is that the weapon design is orky, therefore awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the guns are all really cool and whatnot. They don't always make sense, but I mean, they're neat designs. I mean, my personal favorite's the bastard gun.
I can totally see, you know, that being produced in some post-apocalyptic workshop. I mean, It's this cobbled together, really kind of crappy, but better than nothing gun.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate, like, bad gun. I mean, it sounds cool. You can watch, like, you know, the magazine cycle through the gun. It
looks like it's made out of spare parts, and, you know, that's like exactly what I would imagine a gun in a post-apocalypse looking
Although
like.
I kind of wish they had a blunderbuss.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the one thing we do have to say about the weapon design is while a lot of it really works, like the pneumatic rifle, I could totally see that being something you'd have in the post-apocalypse. They don't give you a lot of incentive to explore it.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame. I mean, you have the pistols, which you have your varieties, but you can't change from pistol. You got your assault rifle, which you got your variety of assault rifles, but you can't diverge from that. And then you got your third slot, which is the shotgun slot, the pneumatic slot, the crossbow slot. I mean, that's where you get the most variation, but there's no real reason to go away from the shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, unless, especially with our playthrough, I mean, the weapons we stuck to for most of the game is kind of the most versatile combat setup. You can use different setups, like you can swap out the shotgun for the pneumatic and use your assault rifle to deal with the mutants, but it's like, you know...
And I mean, we don't know how these weapons deal with the mutants at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine trying to use the pneumatic rifle to try and shoot your way through a horde of no solaces.
Yeah,
like
although
that.
the Van Helsing gun was pretty cool.
It was, but again, kind of the big problem we had with it is that it was just, they don't give you a reason to explore the rest of your arsenal.
Yeah.
At least, not how we played it. So, I guess kind of to wrap up, do we recommend this game?
Well, I would say yes, for at least one playthrough. It's a very good game, despite all the bad crap we've said about it.
Yeah, we're negative people. Yeah, it's just, we say, yes, we recommend this game, but we've got some kind of caveats hanging over us. Right now, as of this recording, it is priced for $15 on Steam, which, again, you know, if you saw this game, you looked at it, and you were like, dude, that looks awesome, I totally want to go in there and play around, shoot up the tunnels, hunt mutants, kill Nazis. Yeah, that's a good price for you.
Yeah, find it on sale, really.
But... Yeah, but that'd be my recommendation for everyone else, is if you really want to play the game, find it on sale. It goes on sale a lot. But there's kind of an even bigger aspect beyond that. Right now, we're about a week away from the launch of Metro Redux.
Which is supposed to be like Metro, but better in almost every way.
The big thing they're doing is they're trying to modernize the Metro 2033 gameplay experience. You know, it's going to have better weapon handling, better graphics, better user interface, just making the game better.
Yeah.
So you still get this kind of really cool story, really cool setting, but it's going to be a much smoother game.
It's not supposed to be very expensive either.
Yeah.
Just $25 for one of them?
Yeah, $25 as of right now. Yeah, grab both of them for $50 and you've got, you know, a good weekend's worth of gaming right there.
Yeah, I mean, they turn a good game into a better game by filing off all the bad parts.
Yeah, and like all of our gripes, aside from the story ones, are all supposedly fixed in Redux. We can't say this for sure. Redux isn't out yet. We haven't played it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish they sent us pre-release copies, but
we're not important.
No, not in the slightest. But yeah, no, that's kind of our condensed thoughts about Metro 2033 right now. We love it. We have more than our share of gripes with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll rediscover. I mean, maybe try Last Light at some point in the future, but I don't know. We'll get to it. But I mean, really, that's kind of it. It's a good game.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, we pretty much wraps up everything we've got for Metro 2033. I'm Little Dansky.
And I'm Rat Dragon.
See you next time.